Hello YouTube, hello again. It's going to be the second part of chapter 3 of this book, which is The Magic of Thinking Big. We're entering chapter 3, and if you haven't listened to the first part, you can go to the first part video. Actually, I was going to end the first part and the reading of that first part. But since I guess I still have a little bit more time, I can continue making this part video. All right, I hope you enjoy it. I hope you had a great day, great evening, or maybe it's early in the morning for you. Good morning. And I hope this can boost, I can help to boost your day. All right. Okay, we are going to continue. We were, I've read it up till the examples of fear and some possible action cures. Okay, so we're going to continue after those. Use these two-step procedures to cure fear and bring confidence. Number one, isolate your fear, print it down, determine exactly what you are afraid of. Number two, then take action. There is some kind of action for any kind of fear. And remember, hesitation only enlarges, magnifies the fear. Take action promptly. Be decisive. Right? Much lack of self-confidence can be traced directly to a mismanaged memory. Your brain is very much like a bank. Every day you make thoughts deposit in your mind bank. This thought deposit grow and become your memory. When you settle down to think or when you face a problem, in effect, you say to your memory bank, what do I really know? What do I already know about this? Your memory bank automatically answers and supply you with bits of information relating to the situation that you deposited on previous occasion. Your memory then is the basic supplier of raw material for your new thoughts. The teller in your memory bank is tremendously reliable. He never crosses you up. If you approach him and say, Mr. Teller, let me withdraw some thoughts I deposited in the past, proving I'm inferior to just about everybody else. He'll say, certainly, sir. Recall how you failed 2 times previously when you tried this? Recall what your 6th grade teacher told you about your inability to accomplish things. Recall what you overheard some fellow workers saying about you. Recall. And on Mr. Teller goes, digging out of your brain thought after thought that proves you are inadequate. But suppose you visit your memory teller with this request. Mr. Teller, I face a difficult decision. I face a difficult decision. Can you supply me with any thoughts which will give me reassurance? And again, Mr. Teller says, certainly, sir. But this time he delivers thoughts you deposited earlier that say you can succeed. Recall the excellent job you did in a similar situation before. Recall how much confidence Mr. Smith placed in you. Recall what your good friends said about you. Recall Mr. Teller, perfectly responsive, lets you withdraw the thought deposits you want to withdraw. After all, it is your bank. There are two specific things to do to build confidence through efficient management of your memory bank. Number one, deposit only positive thoughts in your memory bank. Let's face it squarely. Everyone encounters plenty of unpleasant, embarrassing, and discouraging situations. But unsuccessful and successful people deal with these situations in directly opposite ways. Unsuccessful people take them to heart, so to speak. They dwell on the unpleasant situations, thereby giving them a good start in their memory. They don't take their minds away from them. At night, the unpleasant situation is the last thing they think about. Confident, successful people, on the other hand, don't give it another thought. Successful people specialize in putting positive thoughts into their memory bank. What kind of performance would your car deliver if every morning before you left for work you scooped up a double handful of dirt and put it in your crankcase? That fine engine would soon be a mess, unable to do what you want it to do. Negatively, unpleasant thoughts deposited in your mind affect your mind the same way. Negative thoughts produce needless wear and tear on your mental model. They create worry, frustration, and feeling of inferiority. They put you beside the road while others drive ahead. Do this. In this moment, when you're alone with your thoughts, when you're driving your car or eating alone, recall pleasant, positive experiences. Put good thoughts in your memory bank. This boosts confidence. It gives you a I sure feel good feeling. It helps keep your body functioning right too. Here's an excellent plan. Just before you go to sleep, deposit thoughts in your memory bank. Count your blessings. Recall the many good things you have to be thankful for. Your wife or husband, your children, your friends, your health. Recall the good things you saw people to do. You saw people do today. Recall your little victories and accomplishments. Go over the reason why you are glad to be alive. Right. Number two, withdraw only positive thoughts from your memory bank. I was closely associated several years ago in Chicago with a firm of psychological consultants. They handled many types of cases, but mostly marriage problems and psychological adjustment situations, all dealing with mind matters. One afternoon, as I was walking with the head of the firm about his profession and his techniques for helping the seriously maladjusted person, he made this remark. You know, there would be no need for my services if people would do just one thing. What's that? I asked eagerly. Simply this: destroy the negative thoughts before those thoughts become mental monsters. Most individuals I try to help, he continued, they are operating their own private museum of mental horror. Many marriage difficulties, for example, involved the honeymoon monsters. The honeymoon wasn't as satisfactory as one or both of the marriage partners had hoped. But instead of burying the memory, they reflected on it hundreds of times until it was a giant obstacle to successful marital relationships. They come to see me as much as 5 or 10 years later. Usually, of course, my clients don't see where their trouble lies. It's my job to uncover and explain the source of their difficulty to them and help them to see what a triviality it really is. A person can make a mental monster out of almost any unpleasant happening. My psychologist friend went on. A job failure, a jilted romance, a bad investment, disappointment in the behavior of a teenage child. These are common monsters I have to help troubled people destroy. It is clear that any negative thought, if, if fertilized with repeated recall, can develop into a real mind monster, breaking down confidence and paving the way to serious psychological difficulties. In an article in Cosmopolitan magazine, The Drive Toward Self-Destruction, Alice Mulcahy, pardon if I missaid the name, pointed out that upward of 30,000 Americans commit suicide each year, and another 100,000 attempts to take their own lives. She went on to say, there is shocking evidence that millions of other people are killing themselves by slower, less obvious methods. Still, others are committing spiritual rather than physical suicide, constantly seeking out ways to humiliate, punish, and generally diminish themselves. The psychologist friend mentioned before told me how he helped one of his patients to stop committing mental and spiritual suicide. This patient, he explained, was in her late 30s and had 2 children. In late terminology, she suffered from severe depression. She looked back on every incident of her life as being an unhappy experience. Her school days, her marriage, the bearing of her children, the places she had lived, all were thought of negatively. She volunteered that she couldn't remember ever having been truly happy. And since what one remembers from the past colors what one sees in the present, she saw nothing but pessimism and darkness. When I asked her what she saw in the picture which I showed her, she said, it looks like there will be a terrible thunderstorm tonight. That was the gloomiest interpretation of the picture I've yet heard. In the bracket, uh, so the picture was a large oil painting of the sun low in the sky and a jagged rocky coastline. The painting was very cleverly done and could be construed to be either a sunrise or a sunset. The psychologist commented to me that what a person sees in the picture is a clue to his personality. Most people say it is a sunrise, but the depressed, mentally disturbed person nearly always says it's a sunset. As a psychologist, I can't change what already is in a person's memory, but I can, with the patient's cooperation, help the individual to see his past in a different light. That's the general treatment I use on this woman. I worked with her to help her to see joy and pleasure in her past instead of total disappointment. After 6 months, she began to show improvement. At that point, I gave her a special assignment. Each day, I asked her to think of and write down 3 specific reasons she has to be happy. Then, at her next appointment with me on Thursday, I'd go over her list with her. I continued this sort of treatment for 3 months. Her improvement was very satisfactory. Today, that woman is very well adjusted to her situation. She's positive and certainly as happy as most people. When this woman quit drawing negatives from her memory bank, she was headed toward recovery. Whether the psychological problem is big or little, the cure comes when one learns to quit drawing negatives from one's memory bank and withdraw positives instead. Don't build mental monsters. Refuse to withdraw the unpleasant thoughts from your memory bank. When you remember situations of any kind, concentrate on the good part of the experience. Forget the bad. Bury it. If you find yourself thinking about the negative side, turn your mind off completely. And here is something very significant and very encouraging. Your mind wants you to forget the unpleasant. If you will just cooperate, unpleasant memories will gradually shrivel, and the teller in your memory bank will cancel them. Dr. Melvin S. Hadwick, noted advertising psychologist, in commenting on your ability to remember, says, when the feeling aroused is pleasant, the advertisement has a better chance to be remembered. When the feeling aroused is unpleasant, the reader or listener tends to forget the advertisement message. The unpleasant runs counter to what we want. We don't want to remember it. In brief, it really is easy to forget the unpleasant if we simply refuse to recall it. Withdraw only positive thoughts from your memory bank. Let the others fade away, and your confidence, that feeling of being on top of the world, will soon evaporate. You take a big step forward towards in conquering. You take a big step forward toward conquering fear when you refuse to remember negative, self-deprecating thoughts. Why do people fear other people? Why do many folks feel self-conscious around others? What's behind shyness? What can we do about it? Fear of other people is a big fear, but there is a way to conquer it. You can conquer fear of people if you will learn to put them into proper perspective. A businessman who is doing exceptionally well operating his own wood novelty plant explained to me how he got the proper perspective of people. His example is interesting. Before I went into the army in World War II, I was scared of just about everybody. You just wouldn't believe how shy and timid I was. I felt everyone else was a lot smarter. I worried about my physical and mental inadequacies. I thought I was born to fail. Then by some fortune quirk, of fate, I lost my fear of people in the army. During part 1942 and 1943, when the when the army was inducting men at a terrific clip, I was stationed as a medic at one of the big induction centers. Day after day, I assisted in examining those men. The more I looked at these recruits, the less afraid of people I became. All those men lined up by the hundreds, naked as jaybirds, looked so much alike. Oh, sure, there were fat ones and skinny ones, tall ones and short ones, but they all were confused, all were lonesome. Just a few days before, some of these were rising young executives. Some were farmers, some were salesmen, thrifters, blue-collar workers. A few days before, they had been many things. But at the induction center, they were all alike. I figured out something pretty basic then. I discovered people are alike in many, many more ways than they are different. I discovered the other fellow is pretty much like me. He likes good food. He misses his family and friends. He wants to get ahead. He has problems. He likes to relax. So if the other fellow is basically like me, there's no point in being afraid of him. Now, doesn't that make sense? If the other fellow is basically like me, there's no reason to be afraid of him. Here are two ways to put people in proper perspective. Number one, get a balanced view of the other fellow. Keep these 2 points in mind when dealing with people. First, the other fellow is important. Empathetically, he is important. Every human being is. But remember this also. But remember this also. You are important too. So when you meet another person, make it a policy to think we're just two important people sitting down to discuss something of mutual interest and benefit. A couple of months ago, a business executive phoned to tell me he had just employed a young man whom I had recommended to him shortly before. Do you know what really sold me on that fellow? Asked my friend. What? I asked. Well, it was the way he handled himself. Most job applicants, when they walk in here, are half scared. They give me all the answers they think I want to hear. In a way, most job applicants are a little like beggars. They'll accept anything, but they aren't particular. But he handled himself differently. He respected me, but what's just as important, he respected himself. What's more, he asked me as many questions as I asked him. He's no mouse. He's a real man and he's going to do all right. This mutually important attitude helps you keep the situation balanced. The other value does not come to important relative to you in your thinking. The other fellow might look frightfully big, frightfully important, but remember he is still a human being with essentially the same interests, desires, and problems as you. Number two, develop an understanding attitude. People who want figuratively to bite you, growl at you, pick on you, and otherwise chop you down are not rare. If you're not prepared for people like that, they can punch big holes in your confidence and make you feel completely defeated. You need a defense against the adult bully, the fellow who likes to throw his meager weight around. A few months ago, at the reservation desk of a Memphis hotel, I saw an excellent demonstration of the right way to handle folks like this. It was shortly after 5 p.m., and the hotel was busy registering new guests. The fellow ahead of me gave his name to the clerk, and in a commanding way, the clerk said, "Yes, sir, Mr. R. We have a fine single for you." "Single?" shouted the fellow. "I ordered a double." The clerk said very politely, "Let me check, sir." He pulled the guest reservation from the file and said, "I'm sorry, sir. Your telegram specified a single. I'd be happy to put you in a double room, sir, if we had any available, but we simply do not." Then the irritated customer said, "I don't care what the age that piece of paper says. I want a double." Then he started in with that, "Do you know who I am?" Bit. "Do you know who I am?" Bit. Followed with, "I'll have you fired. You'll see, I'll have you fired." As best he could, under the floorboard tornado, the young clerk injected, "Sir, we're terribly sorry, but we acted on your instructions." Finally, the customer really furious now and said, "I wouldn't stay in the best suit in this hotel now that I know how badly managed it is," and stormed out. I stepped up to the desk, thinking the clerk, who had taken one of the worst public tongue lashing I've seen in some time, would be upset. Instead, he greeted me with one of the finest "Good morning, sir," I've ever heard. "Good morning, sirs," I've ever heard. As he went through the routine of processing my room, I said to him, "I certainly admire the way you handled yourself just a moment ago. You have tremendous character control." "Well, sir, I really can't get mad at the fellow like that. You see, he really isn't mad at me. I was just a space goat. The poor fellow may be in a bad trouble with his wife, or his business may be off, or maybe he feels inferior, and this was his golden chance to feel like a real. I'm just the guy who gave him a chance to get something out of the system." The clerk added, "Underneath, he's probably a very nice guy. Most folks are." Walking towards the elevator, I thought myself repeating aloud, "Underneath, he's probably a very nice guy. Most folks are." Remember those two short sentences next time someone declares war on you. Hold your fire. The way to win in a situation like this is to let the other fellow blow his back and then forget it. Right, that's the end of part 2 of chapter 3. All right, I'm going to mark this down. Well, anyway, I used to face this too. Uh, I used to think everyone is uh, they're great in everything. Better than me, better looking than me, smarter than me, richer than me, and they have everything. Actually, they're more talented, more confidence, and everything. But and there's a story there where okay, here comes the baby. All right, I'm going to finish this video. Anyway, thank you for listening. We're going to continue into part 3. So I'll see you soon, YouTube. Bye bye.